Colombia, we're just a short paddle from LNG Canada, the country's first ever large-scale liquefied natural gas export facility. It's a big deal.
You don't get a lot of firsts these days, but for the first time, Canadian liquefied natural gas is heading overseas. Fuel from the LNG Canada export terminal in Kitimat, BC, is now sailing towards
demand is. In the case of LNG, Asia's the primary market, but now Europe, with the loss of Russian gas, is also a significant market. So,
June 30th, 2025, Canada pulled the plug. After more than 30 years of sending nearly every cubic foot of gas through US pipelines, Canada finally broke free. And Trump? He's watching helplessly as billions in energy revenue sail off to Asia. According to the Canada Energy Regulator, Canada had been exporting 8.8 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day to the United States. That alone brought in $8 billion in 2024. Not bad for a country with no warm beaches and too many moose. But then Donald Trump happened. On March 4th, 2025, the Trump administration imposed 25% tariffs on most Canadian exports and slapped a 10% tariff specifically on energy products, including natural gas. This wasn't economic policy. It was economic vandalism dressed up in a red hat. Trump's trade war logic? Raise prices on your closest ally, choke their energy exports, and hope they'll say thank you. Spoiler, they didn't. Instead, the move backfired spectacularly. Canadian gas, already cheap, became uncompetitive in the US overnight. Canada's AEO index was averaging $0.714 per million BTUs, while US gas at Henry Hub was clocking in at $3.746 per million British thermal units, more than 5 times higher. Add Trump's 10% tax and suddenly Canadian gas wasn't a bargain, it was a liability. Pipelines stalled, contracts crumbled, and American energy buyers, they had to pay more or look elsewhere. Meanwhile in Asia, ears perked up. China, Japan, and South Korea, all desperate for clean and cheap LNG, saw Canada's exit from US pipeline dependence as their golden moment. And on June 30th, 2025, history was made. Canada shipped its first LNG cargo directly to Asia, cutting out Washington, cutting off tariffs, and cutting Trump's ego down a size. The gas log Glasgow was loaded, launched, and bound for markets that actually pay and don't play games. While Trump stood there with empty hands and a full Twitter draft folder, Canada opened an entirely new chapter, one where it sells to Asia, skips the tariffs, and sidesteps the chaos in Washington altogether. Before we continue, click subscribe below. We don't sugarcoat, we don't protect politicians, we expose what others won't. But here's the real kicker. This wasn't some one-off victory lap. This was just the beginning of a strategic shift that could change the global energy map. Canada's $40 billion play isn't just about natural gas. It's about economic sovereignty, tariff-proof trade routes, and replacing America as Asia's energy darling. So the question becomes, what massive infrastructure allowed Canada to pull this off so fast, and how many billions are riding on it? Stick around, because once you see what's fueling this pivot, you'll realize Trump didn't just start a trade war. He may have handed Canada the win of the decade. When Trump thought he could corner Canada with tariffs, he forgot one thing. Canada still knows how to build. Enter LNG Canada, a $40 billion mega project that became the nation's golden parachute out of Trump's trade war. According to project reports and federal energy filings, this isn't just some fancy pipe dream. It's the largest energy infrastructure investment in Canadian history, backed by Shell, Petronas, PetroChina, Mitsubishi, and KOGAS. Their mission: turn Montney shale gas into liquefied natural gas and ship it straight to Asia. No tariffs, no pipelines crossing into MAGA territory, and definitely no Panama Canal tolls. So how did they pull it off? By building a 670-kilometer pipeline called the Coastal GasLink, connecting the gas fields of Dawson Creek to a brand new terminal at Kitimat Port, British Columbia. According to project documentation from LNG Canada and TC Energy, the route cuts transit time to Asia in half, from 20 days through the Panama Canal to to just 10 days across the Pacific. That's tens of millions saved on every single voyage. And Trump? He's still trying to figure out if he can put tariffs on the Pacific Ocean. But LNG Canada isn't just about speed, it's also about scale. The Kitimat facility uses 2 state-of-the-art liquefaction trains producing a combined 14 million tons of LNG per year. That's enough gas to power millions of homes, keep lights on in Tokyo, and best of all, not pay a dime to Washington. On the environmental front, the plant runs on British Columbia's clean hydroelectricity, which, according to the BC Energy Regulator, gives LNG Canada one of the lowest carbon footprints among LNG exporters worldwide. Even the critics are impressed. Why? Because this wasn't built on the backs of Canadian taxpayers alone. Over 5.88 billion Canadian dollars in contracts have gone to local companies and the Haisla Indigenous community, according to LNG Canada's Indigenous Relations report. Not just that, Haisla contractors got equity stakes in the coastal GasLink pipeline itself. In other words, this isn't trickle down, it's buy-in, build-up, and cash out, all while preserving land, culture, and self-determination. And just in case you thought this was all feel-good fluff, here's the business case. If Asia keeps buying, and they will, the partners are already looking at doubling output to 28 million tons per year. That's not an energy project, that's a country-changing revenue engine. But don't get too comfortable. Northern British Columbia isn't exactly easy on the wallet. According to project financial disclosures, construction and maintenance costs are significantly higher than US Gulf Coast projects. Add strict Canadian environmental regulations, and you're talking about billions more in overhead. That's why the BC provincial government stepped in with carbon tax credits and sales tax incentives to keep investor confidence afloat. Helpful? Yes. Controversial? You bet. Critics say it's too generous. Advocates say it's the only way to compete with Texas. Meanwhile, Trump's trade team is likely scribbling down, "How did we let this happen?" in Sharpie. But here's the part that should really worry Washington. Canada isn't begging to come back. It just proved it can go it alone and ship LNG directly to Asia faster, cleaner, and cheaper than ever before. And the big question now, how are China, Japan, and South Korea responding? Because they just saw a brand new supply line open up, one that doesn't come with US baggage or Trump's tariff tantrums. That's where segment 3 picks up. And trust us, you don't want to miss the numbers on what's coming next. So what happened after Canada's first LNG cargo set sail on June 30th, 2025? The phones in Tokyo, Seoul, and Beijing lit up because while Trump was still shouting about tariffs and trying to restart coal plants like it was 1954, Asia was busy locking in the future, and it had a maple leaf stamped on it. According to Asia Pacific energy analysts, Japan, South Korea, and China are all racing to replace Russian gas and dirty coal with cleaner, more reliable LNG. And Canada just stepped in as the new MVP. Let's look at the numbers. Japan, already 80% dependent on imported gas, has committed to purchasing an additional 20 million tons of LNG annually, starting in 2026. South Korea is expanding its LNG storage capacity by 50% over the next decade. China has already signed multiple long-term contracts to lock in supply before winter hits. And Canada just showed up to the party with premium LNG, direct shipping routes, and zero Trump baggage. That first shipment aboard, the GasLog Glasgow, it carried 2.66 million tons of LNG, and it didn't have to detour through the Panama Canal, meaning it cut shipping time from 20 days to just 10. That saves tens of millions of dollars per voyage, according to shipping cost models from the International Gas Union. And this wasn't a one-off. Starting in 2026, LNG Canada plans to operate over 170 voyages per year to Asia. That's not a test run, that's a full-blown maritime pipeline. Here's the kicker. Before Trump's tariff war, nearly 100% of Canada's gas exports, about 8.6 billion cubic feet per day, went through US pipelines, according to the Canada Energy Regulator. But after the 10% tariff, US sale prices spiked, contracts froze, and Canada knew it needed out. Now, Canada is no longer chained to US pipelines or Washington's mood swings. It has a direct line to Asia's booming demand and a new seat at the global energy table. But success brings its own challenges. The LNG Canada team is already weighing a second phase to double capacity from 14 to 28 million tons per year, putting Canada among the top 5 LNG exporters globally, right alongside Qatar, Australia, and yes, the very country that tried to tariff them into submission. Reuters reports that a final investment decision on Phase 2 is expected just before Phase 1 hits full output to ride the wave of Asia's growing demand. But that leap won't come cheap. Building out to 28 million tons per year would require tens of billions more in capital, all while navigating tight environmental rules and sky-high costs in northern BC's rugged terrain. So how is Canada making it work? Provincial tax breaks for carbon and sales tax equity partnerships with indigenous groups like the Haisla Nation, and a laser focus on low-carbon operations powered by BC's clean hydroelectricity. It's working. Canada is now earning top marks from Asian buyers for price stability, short shipping times, and clean tech leadership. And Trump, he's still figuring out how Canada stole gas that was never his in the first place. But here's the cliffhanger no one can ignore. Will this energy coup wake up Washington, or will Trump double down and launch a fresh round of tariffs, this time against a neighbor who no longer needs him? And even more critical, can Canada hold its lead against energy giants like Qatar, the US, and Australia? Because Phase 2 isn't just a business move, it's a geopolitical gamble. Massive capital, strict regulations, global competition, all of it converging right now. So, what do you think? Will Canada take the LNG crown or get crushed under its own ambition? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Civic Chatterbox and hit the bell, because this story, it's just getting started.